life-changing wishes. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Jay Powell joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Jay Powell, good morning. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Oh, good morning, Bo. Thank you, bud.
Okay, so we're going to unpack some of this, and I'm going to let you go whatever direction you want. But Mississippi State, you played for the M/S. Means a lot to you. You're still involved with the program. You went on to have a hell of a MLB career, all of that. And so it's been a struggle 3 of the last 4 years. Last year was a good year. This year, things aren't going well. They're rolling out. I'd like to get your thoughts, and I know that you've got another job where you're trying to win games with Jackson Prep. But with PicoCon and now Evan Sierre and Carson Ligon, to me, outside of Pico, this is not a good enough SEC rotation for who Mississippi State is. How do you see it with what they've done so far, Jay?
Well, look, I think there's it's not right now. They're probably not what they thought they would be on the weekend. I mean, there's no way around that. I mean, Pico's been really good. I love Ben Davis's stuff. I mean, that kid has really good stuff. For whatever reason, just hadn't been as consistent, I think, as they would like. And the same thing with Carson. I mean, and, you know, you get kids like Carson Ligon, his stuff is incredible, but he's just not missing bats. You know, there's a difference, Bo, between command and control. You know, control, you throw strikes. Command, you throw the ball where you want to. And I think a lot of times with Carson, he's trying to throw strikes, and his stuff suffers, if that makes sense. And when it does, he gets knocked around a little bit. The flip side of all that is the bullpen is pretty good. They've got some guys down there that can piece together some things. So I'm thinking, you know, from their standpoint, they're hoping Pico goes deep in a game, win game 1, and then they've got enough guys in that pen that they can piece together games 2 and 3. That's tough. It's tough, but there's very few teams in this league that has 3 sure enough SEC guys in the rotation. But it's tough when you're trying to piece together 2 and 3.
So Justin we know how talented Justin Parker is, the pitching coach at MSU. He did a great job last year. He may be doing a good job this year with what he's got to work with and what you just laid out. But okay, so the bottom line here, it sounds like if Pico doesn't give them 6 or pitch really well and put them in position to win, they're behind the 8 ball on Saturday and Sunday because they're relying on 4 dudes to go out there and have pretty damn good performances to win. Is that where you're going, Jay?
Well, I think game 1 is obviously important in any year and in any series. But with Pico, it's really, really important that you get a good start and really you win that game 1 because there's been some inconsistencies in game 2 and 3. So I mean, it's the thing you can't have happen is something happen and Pico goes 2-3 or you know has to pull in the 4th and you start running through bullpen guys because when you do that. There's just a good opportunity in game 2 and 3. You're going to have to use that bullpen a good bit. And they know that. I mean, this isn't something that's earth-shattering news. So that's why a Pico start on that Friday is really important. 1, to give you a chance to win, but 2, to keep your bullpen in a position to where you can match up and you can pick up some innings going through that Saturday and Sunday games.
So Jay Powell on the Out of Bounds show, World Series champ, played at Mississippi State. And we're talking the Hail State baseball program. They're 3-9. There's a lot of frustration within the program because of everything that's happened post 2021. This is a program that I believes, and the fan base should believe, that they should be in the postseason every year. Now, you're not going to make the Supers every year. You're not going to make Omaha every year, but regional play should. Go ahead.
You should be in a position every year to make a run.
Mm-hmm.
Some years you're going to have injuries. Some years you're just not going to play good. But what you're saying and what you're getting at, you're exactly right.
Okay.
I mean, they should. That's where they should be.
As a former player, how frustrated are you?
I mean, look, man, I'm gonna say this, and I say this truthfully. Those guys are friends of mine. You know, I can promise you this: there's nobody in the world that wants to do better than those coaches. But that being said, they you know, they make a lot of money, and they know what they signed up for in this league. It's a point where we're frustrated. I mean, heck, they're frustrated. I mean, as anybody that's part of that program, whether you're a coach, a player, whatever, you want to do better than where we are right now. I honestly try to look at it from an optimistic standpoint. The good news is we don't have to go through Tennessee. We don't have to go through Georgia this year. You don't have to go to Arkansas. So you still got a shot. I mean, you still really have a shot. The bad part is going to be if it gets to a point where there is no, quote, window, I guess you could say, to get you to postseason. And I think that's where, that gets really, I think, frustrating for the players and the coaches, because then it's kind of like you're in last place in August in the big leagues, and you're going to the field every day, grinding it out, knowing, there's no shot of us going anywhere.
Right. And do you feel like they are who they are at this point in the season, Jay?
I'm going to say this, Bo. We played Texas at the beginning of the year and lost 3 games. And I remember I was at all 3 games doing the radio. There's not a lot of talent difference in us and Texas, if any. It's really not. And you just look at it, and it's just a situation where right now, some teams find ways to win and some teams find ways to lose. And right now, we kind of kick ourselves in the butt a little bit, and whether it's a situational hitting or base running issue or an error or a bad time or inability, something, it's just for whatever reason, it's kind of like we just kind of found ways to kick ourselves in the foot. And, that's the part I think that is frustrating, not only to the coaches, but to the fans and to everybody. Is, I mean, there's some kids on this team that's pretty darn good. And it's that part of it, you look at it and you think, well, man, if we can just get hot, if we can just win a couple games here. But the problem is they've dug themselves such a hole that they've got to play, they've got to be 12-6 just to get to 500. And even if you get 500 in that conference, that's 500 in SEC is a good record.
Sure.
But the RPI is going to be such that you're not going to host. But at least if you can get back to 500, that would be a heck of a turnaround.
Jay Powell played at Mississippi State, a decade in Major League Baseball. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Mississippi State's in Tuscaloosa this weekend. And Jay, I think they got to take 2 or 3 to continue to give themselves a shot this weekend. How do you see it?
No question. I figured it up the other day, and they basically have to win 1.8 games per series. So that you're basically at this point, that to me is just to make it in the postseason. So you're basically you've got pretty much no room for error. Now you got Alabama's a really good team, but you could do that. You got Auburn. You got Missouri, you got Ole Miss, so there's some every weekend you're going to play a good team, but you don't have to go to Arkansas. You're not going to Tennessee the next weekend.
Right.
So you've got some series to where it's doable. It's doable, but you're going to have to go out there and do it. And I know that's such a coach cliche, but it is doable. I mean, Alabama's good. They're really good. They're good offensively. But it's a series they can go over there and win. Yeah.
Okay. Jay Powell on the Out of Bounds Show. All right, Jay, I'm going to throw this out to you. I'll be interested to see where you want to go or how far you want to go. Now, a lot of people don't like John Cohen, but I thought as a baseball coach, he did a hell of a job. And I thought the toughness component, gritty, compete your tail off till the end, all of that, really worked for the program. And I thought that John, and again, he's an acquired taste, but I thought that John also, Jay, the the noise and the expectations never fazed him. He knew exactly what he was getting into from being a 3-year starter at Mississippi State and so on. I don't think it's for everybody because everybody knows who you are in town and so on. I like the staff. They're friends of mine too. But it's almost, if they do make a change at some point, I think you've got to look, not exact, but a John Cohen 2.0, whether that's Lane Burroughs or whatever. Do you see where I'm going? Do you agree with anything that I just said?
Well, I'll say this, and you know, I know this is the way I use that analogy is, and I'll use it from the player standpoint. I always say you get kids in there that aren't really they're no Mississippi State, the program. They don't know Mississippi State with 17,000 people there on a Saturday afternoon. It can get overwhelming to some of these kids if it's kind of like, and this is kind of cheesy, but it's kind of like the Yankees in the sense that they're quote the only show in town. Mississippi State baseball. Say what you want, but that's Mississippi State.
Sure.
And I sometimes with the players, I feel like they get in there and it's just, you know, it just overwhelms them. I think that can be said with some of the coaches. Now, look, Lim's been there for 6 years? I mean, he gets it. Right. And there's a lot of expectations at that university for that program. So I get what you're saying. I think having some idea of what you're getting into obviously helps these guys as a coaching staff and as a player. And it's, you know, look, I never want to see anybody lose their job just like you. I mean, right. It's a tough gig, man. It's a tough gig. And like I said, those guys are friends of mine. But, you know, they also know what they signed up for.
Right.
And it's like Richard Williams said one time, it's the reason why there's 2 commas in all these guys' salary nowadays. But, I mean, I get what you're saying. And I think having an idea of the expectations, whether you're a player or a coach, means a lot, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I didn't frame it up. Here's what former players like Adam Frazier and Hunter Renfroe and Rooker and Mangum and Graveman have shared with us. That Cohen was so hard on them, put so much pressure on them in the fall and the first 6 weeks coming out of the winter, Jay, that they felt like those moments both at home and on the road were not too big. Do you see where I'm going there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Look, it's one thing Mississippi State's, and I've got friends at Ole Miss that are good friends of mine, and they always said, you know, the one thing about Mississippi State baseball, they just grind, man. It's blue collar, and honestly, we've lost some of that. We've lost some of that the last few years. We're just sometimes, you know, and people say, well, what makes a tough baseball team? A tough baseball team is a guy that, with a runner at third base with less than 2 outs, gets to run home. Find a way. It's accountability. And some of that, I think that we've kind of lost over the last few years. And, you know, that's a tough thing to kind of swallow sometimes. But, you know, all you can do is just kind of, like I said, just keep going and keep grinding. And it's, you know, just keep playing. I mean, but you got to figure out a way to kind of get that edge back, because that part of it we've been lacking a little bit.
All right. Speaking of edge, you being a former pitcher and had a tremendous amount of success. Take a guy like Cal Stephen, who transferred in, who had that dog and grit in him. How impressed were you calling his games and being around him, Jay?
Well, Cal really helped himself by coming to Mississippi State. He really did. I mean, I saw last night he had a great outing in the minor leagues. He was just an uber competitor, as they say. And that's the other thing. You know, we get a guy like Cal Stevens, and now with the way this whole deal is shaped up with the portal, I mean, you hit on them and you do real well, but if you miss, you do bad. And there's, you know, and I don't want to get off on the other end, because I'll to answer your question, I was extremely impressed. I love watching Cal pitch. I mean, but at the same time, the bigger issue I think is when we're talking about this team, something's going to have to, and this is college baseball. Like there's going to get to a point where you're going to have to just hire somebody to handle, almost like a general manager.
Sure.
If they're not going to change the portal, then we've got to hire somebody to say, okay, I saw this kid at Westville, Indiana, or whoever, or Indiana State or wherever, and he's really good and can help us, because you're going to have to go to the portal every year. And I just think sometimes these college guys, these coaches don't have enough, whether it's resources or time, to really evaluate some of these portal kids.
Okay, I agree with that. All right, do you have a couple more minutes, or do you got to?
Yeah,
okay.
No, I'm good.
All right. Jay Powell on ESPN 105.9 The Zone, All-American at Mississippi State, decade MLB, talking Hail State baseball. If a change has to be made at some point, do you subscribe to the theory that, all right, here's what I want to throw out. O'Sullivan at Florida, Vitello at Tennessee, and Corbin at Vandy all went from assistants to head coaches, Jay, and it worked.
Right.
All right. John Cohen worked at Mississippi State. He had already been at some small school in Louisiana and had been at Kentucky and had won an SEC championship there, as you know. So it can work a number of different ways. Are you one that subscribes to the theory that, because I think Cohen had Cannizzaro right. He had the right pick and the right Uber recruiter if he doesn't screw up off the field. But here's where I want to – do you believe that it has to be a sitting head coach, or no, Bo, if it's somebody that's a super successful assistant, then I could buy that too? Where do you stand?
Well, I'm just going to talk, and I respect the question, but I'm going to just answer it in just my opinion of coaches in general. You know what I'm saying? I think that sometimes, and we lose sight of that, whenever we go out, these ADs or whoever in these search committees, they go out and they start looking for coaches. They start two things. They get too concerned about how it's going to land on Twitter.
Yeah.
And one of the guys we're talking about, and I love him too, but he was real concerned about how, when he hired coaches, how it's going to land on Twitter. And two, they get so caught up in, he's a great recruiter. Well, at some point, you still have to teach baseball. These are 19-year-old kids coming out of high school. Now, the portal's different, but at some point, you still have to teach baseball. And you can't be afraid to, if it's an assistant, if it's a head coach, whoever, you've got to hire the right guy and not worry about what everybody else is going to say.
Right.
And I think that with a lot of these ADs, and I'm not talking about Zach, I'm talking about all across the country, get so concerned about how it lands on social media, and more so than is it this the guy Kendall Rogers said to hire? If it is, let's hire him. Well, that may not be the right guy.
Sure.
There ain't no offense to Kendall, but you need to hire the right guy for the right place, and not who's the hot guy on Twitter.
I agree. All right. Well, Jay Powell, that was great. I appreciate it. And I know you're ready for this program to hopefully you're hoping that they catch fire starting tonight.
I am, man. I'm hoping they catch fire, and I'm hoping they make a run, and everything is as good as gold. And, I really am, because, those dudes are friends of mine, and I want them to do well. But at the same time, I told Ron Polk this, I told John Cohen this. This program is bigger than Jay Powell, Ron Polk, John Cohen, Lim, whoever. It's not about us. It's about that program. So at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for the program.
You just nailed it. Jay Powell, have a good weekend. We appreciate you.
Thank you, bud.
Jay Powell on the Out of Bounds Show, World Series champ, All-American at Mississippi State, pitching coach for Jackson Prep, and we appreciate him laying that out for us. I thought he made some great points, and again, he's friends with the staff, so am I, but he just nailed it. No one is bigger than the program, so they got to get going, or some change, in my opinion. They got to get going, or some changes need to be made. Can they do it? Possibly. It's going to be if they had gotten one more win against Texas or LSU, if you just don't go, if you go 2-4, maybe even 1-5, because literally one conference win could be the difference.
Yep.
But damn, now you got to go to Tuscaloosa tonight, Jackson Meadows, and you got to, this weekend. And obviously Pico Khan is throwing, and I don't really know what you have after that. I mean, these guys are a million billion times better than me, but Evan Sierra and Carson Ligon, I just don't know if they're good enough to get, Jay would know, and if they're good enough to get enough swing and miss at the SEC level, because it's damn hard to do. They may be more mid-relief guys or Tuesday guys, but, one of them may take the baseball this weekend and go 5 2/3 and shut down Alabama and get to that mid-relief back into the pen, which Jay was describing as guys. And I agree with him. That is the more talented group outside of Pico Khan. I know, you were expecting some things from Charlie Foster. You were expecting some things from Pruitt, the Indiana State. I mean, Indiana State was number 4 in the country all year last year.
Right.
And, some things have happened, but the bottom line is you got to win. You just got to win.
Who's on campus next year, Lamonis or Keyshawn Murphy?
Oh, if I had to bet right now, neither.
Neither.
Well, no, I think there's like, I don't know if it broke in the last few minutes if he's gone. Hold on.
Oh, wow, really?
Because I was just focused on interviewing Jay. I'll have to look. We're live in the Bake Plus studio. The chicken Parmesan gyro with a ice cold cocktail, Tito's and lemonade. Aplos and the Renaissance, Aplos and Highland Village with some of those Parmesan fries at Aplos. Hour number 3 coming up. Tanner Allen's going to join us in a few minutes live in studio. You'll want to watch on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports.